we are operating on a ratio of 1 to about 2,000 farmers. I mean, it's not possible. It can't work like that. What recommended is saying 1 to about 400 farmers. Then again, you look at the extension. I don't know, maybe most of them are also aging. They are also having very old tools and systems that they're using. So what is critical is that we have to do it differently. And perhaps we don't have to just employ extension people with the uniform the way we knew it in 1970s and 80s. This is where digitalization comes in. We have to digitize our extension. So this system is talking of e-extension, which is going to be able to bring the information onto apps, onto the mobile phones that we've talked about here. Communications Authority says they are going to have to avail this. So this will be available to the farmers' information on their handset, and they are able to use that information. The weather data, this is something that will be available to them. They'll be able to make decisions on when they are supposed to plant, and this is how the innovation there is going to help them. If you allow me 2 minutes, then again looking at that same thing, the market information, market intelligence. How will farmers be able to know when to sell? How will the consumers be able to know when to buy and where to buy? Because sometimes you've seen in this country where you have bumper harvest in part A, part B is suffering. We can avail this information through this particular system so that then we know where the market is and how the market trends are running. So they're followed up, and that is benefiting everyone so that they maximize on their benefits. And also they will also know where to buy the inputs so that they also minimize on their cost of production. Last one on the same is we're now working with the World Bank to develop something that we call credit coding. The credit coding would mean what? Whenever you pick data, the routine data that we pick, this is good, but how does it help us? We need to move it now to transaction data, where we are able to have these farmers, we have their records, we can show what they are producing consistently and how they are doing it. At the end of the day, we can use that information, the banks can use that information to trust these people and even avail credit to them. That's what you need to do with the technology. That's what you need to do with this type of innovation. So this is a system that we're trying to work on, and we're building it now. The registration process will be actually over, and we will have registered all the farmers in this country in whatever corner they are, knowing what they're producing or what they're engaged on. Then we roll out the other modules of the system.
Thank you so much. You're raising a lot of issues that are making my head spin, because there's a lot of challenges that come when we're trying to roll out all this infrastructure and making sure that what you are talking about, even reaching the farmers, can actually become a reality. And I'll just want to pick on Mr. Chiloba, Director General Communication Authority, to share with us the challenges that they have faced in trying to deploy the Universal Service Fund projects.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Good morning, my colleagues, and of course, the leaders present here. If you want to understand the Universal Service Fund, I think the 3-minute video captures the spirit around the Universal Service Fund, which was basically a fund set up by government to ensure that when it comes to access to digital or ICT services, you have universal access. And universal access means that regardless of who you are, regardless of where you are able to access ICT services in equal measure. And that's why when you watch the video, you will see that our focus is largely on populations and areas that are unserved or underserved when it comes to ICT infrastructure and services. And that is supported by the legal framework. That's the Kenya Information Communication Act. Now, all is not rosy. And listening to colleagues here, we are talking about the dividends that come about because of ICT investments. But to get there is quite some journey. First, think about business continuity. When you have fiber cuts, or those towers are being brought down, that means those services will not be accessible. And what we are seeing over time is that the supporting infrastructure is under risk. And we need to come up with a framework that protects the critical infrastructure supporting access to ICT services. For example, in the last 3 years, while we have spent taxpayers' money setting up towers in some parts of northeastern and the coastal part of the country, 30 towers being brought down by insurgents in that particular area. So 30 towers, it means that that investment goes to waste. So how do we make sure that we protect this critical infrastructure as we pursue universal access? The second bit is that we cannot effectively implement the Universal Service Fund projects if we do not have, for example, complementary infrastructure. Our responsibility is, for example, to set up a tower. But complementary infrastructure here, we require roads to access some of those critical sites. We require power to power the towers. And that responsibility lies elsewhere. So you go to some parts of this country, go to Baringo, for example, the challenge of roads, the challenge around power is immense. And that kind of delays our work when it comes to implementation of Universal Service Fund projects. Now, thirdly, you have to think about availability of infrastructure, but the usage of that particular infrastructure is also a challenge. Why? Because, as my colleague from Safaricom mentioned, access to digital devices or smart devices is a problem in our country. We have up to 40% of Kenyans who do not have access to smart devices. And that hampers our ability to ensure that the investment that we've put in infrastructure is actually delivering dividends for ordinary citizens. The other bit, which may be relevant for this audience, is really the organization and coordination around the local leadership at the county level. Sometimes we tend to get mixed signals in terms of the leadership at the local level. While you invite us to come in your area to support some of these projects, we tend to get conflicting signals. You go to the ground, you want to engage the community, but the responses has always been negative. So the issue is, how do we coordinate better at the county level, looking at the office of the senator, the office of the members of parliament, the MCAs and the governor, working together as a team to be able to deliver value from the Universal Service Fund. So while there's opportunity to ensure that there is universal access through the Universal Service Fund,
Communications Authority of Kenya, Director General Ezra Chiloba, who is attending the Devolution conference there, addressing a panel discussion around the digital economy as well as ICT.